Yeah, I wanted to make a video today primarily sharing spontaneously from silence. I notice it seems like there's a new wave of collective intensity kind of brewing, and that is communicating itself as new flavors of crisis, both for people at an individual level and at a collective level. And for me, those of you that have worked with me before and that know me, the primary foundation for all my work, or our work, mine and Thessa's work, is primarily grounding into silence through the body and reaffirming the ground of that silence, which, depending on where you are in yourself, could be the ground of being, the foundation of the absolute or deepest darkness. And whatever that foundation is for you, that is home, and that is what wants to be cultivated and reorientated to, particularly when there's a height, an increase in activity, an increase of kind of what can feel like incoherent, chaotic movements and changes and experiences within one's inner space. And the gateway to that silence, when it's unavailable, inaccessible, is acceptance and allowance. And often at times, that acceptance and allowance needs to be really radical, because maybe what is being pushed to the surface is revealing itself in strong separation from that ground of silence and from the ground of being. And really, if you follow the recipe that if you work with us and you're following that recipe, you get to see the recipe of accepting and allowing, and then reorientating to silence, and then letting what is active and moving come into greater harmony with that silence. If you're following that recipe, what you're doing is you're cultivating source remembering. You're actively bringing in the source of all things manifest through silence, and obviously that ground and what we're calling the foundation is going to change as you change, and your revelations of that silence or of true nature deepen and develops. And it really is such a game changer. You know, in a lot of spiritual circles, there's a lot of dialoguing around where we're creators, we are manifestors, we're creating our own reality. But what I have learned is that the comprehension of that within oneself is actually a process of deep investigation of the nature of consciousness and perception and identity. And it's not really enough to mentally know that. It needs to be realized at every level and at every cell of your being. And that takes time, that takes commitment and dedication and enthusiasm, and really like just taking the time to inquire and explore. You know, you may be experiencing physical imbalances or lack of health in this time. And for example, you may have at a foundation or at the root of your personality, there may be a revelation of source remembering, but does your liver remember its source? Does your kidney remember its source? And So we can keep going. There's no end to the potentiality of cultivating greater unification through the remembering of source within any state or any phenomena of experience. And so that's really our passion is really reuniting that depth of remembering within any state of experience, whether it is pleasant or unpleasant, or a state of darkness or light. It really is about emptying oneself out in the face of that state, and then the potential of that state and its true nature and the medicine of that state can be revealed, and everything, or at least this is a basic assumption that we have in our work, that I have learned remains to be true, is that everything has its medicine, and the discovery of that medicine is intimate to the remembering of that state at a level of source, and the dissolution of any separate sense of identity, any I or me that is in separation from that source, that is generating the state in a separate way. And this is very nourishing and fulfilling, because we get to experience the art of life, the art of any phenomena in existence, and to fulfill what that is. So I encourage you, and it's always good for me to do this myself as I'm making a video or sharing. I encourage you to also just notice what's happening in your inner space, and to journey with me as I'm sharing through your own inner environment, which means to me following the sensations, any emotions, thinking, movements, vibration, just letting your inner environment journey with my sharing, and you being with yourself. And then noticing or being open to anything that feels calm and still or silent in relationship to your body and what is active and moving. And this is really what I'm doing we are doing in our group work. We are reaffirming that foundation continuously, that foundation of silence or the absolute. And then we're making unique explorations from there. But because everyone is journeying within themselves, you're bringing all of you with you, which means whatever is alive for you, whatever is happening in your inner environment is intimate to the exploration. And this is an incredibly beautiful foundation for group work, because it really naturally, like built in that approach, there is a development of sovereignty, because the focus is so much upon exploring your own experience of inner unification, and notice when there's separation. And I found that this way of journeying as a group creates a naturally intimate, freeing field of communion, where there's really nothing that gets left out. There's no experience being had, phenomena, way of thinking that gets left out. So it's really about cultivating a very deep field of inclusivity, and that is ultimately addressing where we identify with something, which is to be one thing at the exclusion of another. And so by addressing that fixed sense of self, exclusivity, I'm this at the exclusion of that, we then dissolve into greater unification, and that is ultimately freeing, freeing to what is true to your nature, and dissolving of what is stuck within the illusion of separation. So I'm really, as ever, in awe of the beauty of this way and this approach. And I guess that's why I'm so committed to the sharing and delivering of this recipe. And I was just spending the morning reading the comments in our groups from people's explorations, and I'm just struck by the profundity within which each person is journeying within themselves, and how their sharing takes me there, as they're sharing their exploration, I'm transported into the depths of their experience and through my own inner space. And that is a really, really profound way of journeying together, to really follow each other through the body and kind of develop intimacy through greater intimacy with ourselves ultimately. So I'm just curious if you're listening to this, and if there is an area of your life that feels like it's being shaken up. And you can just notice the signature of that within your inner environment by tuning into that area of your life. And if there's a lot being shaken up, you may be just tuning in generally. If it's just a layer that you're drawn to, or you want to break down the exploration, you can just tune into one layer. So when we're working with an issue or a theme, it's good to have an anchor, and you can use, a moment in time. You can use an imagined scenario, or just let your inner gaze move into that theme or that area of your life and the people involved. Whatever you just notice how your psyche churns that theme up for you, and the images and people and scenarios. Let yourself be in that anchor, whatever it is. Feel yourself there, if it's a memory or an imagined scenario. Feel the people involved around you in space. And just begin by noticing the sensations in your body. The sensations are the gateway to the unconscious mind. So the kinesthetic experience is really key if we want to include what is not yet conscious. Any emotion, any emotional tone or mood in your environment, any sensations that come with that emotion. Any thinking or energy of thinking. It's Really good to include the thoughts, even if the head is busy. Let the head be busy, let the sensations express. And as you're becoming more intimate with the activity of your inner environment, just see what lights up when I ask you the question. Is there anything that feels calm and still, or silent and changing in relationship to your body? What is it that is not the sensations, not the thoughts, emotions? What is absent of activity? Just see what lights up when I invite you to tune in to what is calm and still. So you can pause the video if you want to reaffirm that ground, take a bit of time just to deepen into that silence that may feel more like a peacefulness or a relaxation and softening in your inner space. So we're really just gonna allow that silence of the inner environment around your body to be in the same space as the activity, specifically the activity that is stirring to the pushing to the surface as you tune into your anchor or this theme, the area of your life that is moving and shaking. And we're really just allowing the activity to express, letting ourselves move and shake, letting ourselves feel and be the emotion, the thoughts, together with what feels calm, silent, even if the calm is just a 1%, letting that 1% be presenced. Just by presencing that foundation of silence, or however it's appearing, you're already informing the nature of your inner environment and what is occurring there, because you're bringing in the ingredient that is ultimately the driving force of unification. If your environment is swirling and changing and chaotically like a soup, Just let it swell and change, remembering that allowing is going to naturally bridge you to that foundation of silence where it's not yet available. If the activity is very intense, then I encourage you to resource radical allowing. Any trauma that can appear very much in the nervous system, can create a deep contraction or fear response in the body. You're going to want to really take your time and I've often found like placing a hand on my heart or on my belly, kind of deep breathing, really resourcing for yourself, like self-resourcing, allowing, and which ultimately bridges you to deeper surrender and silence. So you'll notice where there is a greater communion of that silence and what is active and moving, there is a settling that happens in your inner environment. Just noticing if there is any level of settledness, even if there are elements still churning incoherently, uncomfortably. Can often be so focused on what's still in separation, and we can miss the subtlety of communion that is occurring, what is coming into communion. And that will be expressing as coherence of the activity will start to reorganize itself coherently and begin to express new qualities that are more representative of true nature of that source remembering. So I've shared plenty of meditations guiding you through the basic recipe for a longer dive and kind of experience of feeling held in this basic recipe and guided. But I really just wanted to communicate and remind anyone who is needing to hear this that there is a simplification that can be drawn on when we simply resource what is calm and still or silent in relationship to the body and invite that into greater communion, or let that be a foundation for being with whatever layer we're exploring. And then to explore that layer through the somatic experience, through the sensations, the emotions, the thoughts, the movements, vibrations. And any change within your inner environment is an expression of a depth of allowing, because anything that is not yet willing to change, it is likely that there hasn't yet been a full inclusion. and allowing of what is occurring. And that can sometimes take time. If you're stuck in the mental, sometimes the mental can be so grippy, then you can feel into just dropping deeper. It really can just be an invitation to yourself to drop deeper, maybe underneath or behind what's happening. Any intensely compelling sensory experience, see if you can just drop a little bit deeper to the signature of what is occurring, but at a more subtle level. The dropping deeper can also be felt as a descending from the head down or falling backwards, dissolving backwards. Sometimes people experience deeper darkness or silence behind the body. And if this is the case, you can just drop back into that darkness, silence. This is such a powerful time to deepen one's commitment to what I keep naming is the true revolution, the momentum of awakening within oneself. And it's difficult to do that if you're in constant fight, flight, crisis mode. And what I notice is that if we really want to get in touch with what's at the root of that fight, flight, crisis mode, we're going to need to step back from the details that are compounding the crisis and actually take the time to deepen into the nature of our experience there, so that there can be a greater understanding and then comprehension of ourselves. And you don't really need a lot of techniques to do that. You don't need it's really just the willingness to be present and listen within one's inner space. And if you let silence be a foundation for that listening, it really can be as simple as just allowing whatever gets pushed to the surface. And there really comes a point where if you've done a lot of inner work and you find yourself repeating the same patterns, then I really encourage you to consider the inquiry that is going to call in the transformation of self, because we can keep healing forever and ever and we can go in circles, and there gets to a point where there's a deeper question that may need to be asked within oneself that is going to point to actually the transmutation of oneself, the actual complete consumption of what you have been and known yourself to be before. And really a lot of what the crisis, at the kind of dramatic level, what is really being called for is a radical renewal of oneself, rebirth. And that doesn't necessarily have to be a painful process. It may be, and that is where you need to be, if that is the case, to come into greater acceptance of individual and collective pain. And that is a beautiful mechanism for the deepening of the development of self. And if you find yourself stuck in those layers of pain, it may be that processing that pain and being with that pain is no longer what's needed. And the invitation is, who would I be without that pain? What is new here? What is coming in that's not the pain or not the crisis? So I really just wanted to give another little taster of what we're doing in our groups. And I will be creating another group beginning probably in the new year that will be starting again from the beginning of our work. And so we'll be very much developing this basic recipe together and going into the deeper revelations of silence and the absolute through the body, as in the embodiment of that can be fulfilled, and learning how to work with an issue and heal trauma, but with that invitation continually held to remember our true nature, which becomes a transcendence of the necessity for healing and being in a process around something. So I'll share more information about that nearer the time. I just wanted to offer up some of the simplicity of the jewels of the way that we work. And I am here. I'm available for one-on-one if you would like to deepen with me. And for now, just wishing you all so well and many, many blessings for whatever layer you're in. May the fruit of that be truly fulfilled. I am so in awe of the power of this time, and I don't doubt that your soul knows where it's going. Lots of love. Thank you for journeying with me, and please be in touch if you would like to know more.